Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of the Roman helmet build. If you haven't already seen part 1, make sure you do that. There'll be a link in the description so you can watch it. We'll wait for you. Okay, welcome back. There's also the link to the pattern in the description. It includes 5 different sizes for lots of different sizes of heads. And I think we left off working on the plume, so let's get on that.
Grab the plume bases and glue 2 of the flat sides together. Then bend them right on their center lines so you can glue the other flat sides together as well. If you're using foam that has texture on one side, grab some coarse sandpaper and rough up the foam all around the edges. Otherwise the glue's just not going to stick very well. Put a little glue just on the rounded part of piece 7, the plume base bottom strip, and line up the center mark on it with mark Q on the plume base. Now carefully work your way along, gluing the strip so it stays lined up with the bottom edge of the plume base. While you're gluing, always pay attention to how the 2 feet of the plume base are lining up with each other. It's easy to pull one side more than the other and then end up with a kind of wonky plume base, which will then make the plume not sit properly on the helmet. Mark a curved line on the bottom strip between the 2 feet and cut along that line. The reason for the curved cut is so that it'll match the curve on the top of the helmet when we glue it on. According to my minimal research, it looks like legionnaires would wear the crest from front to back and centurions would wear it side to side. It works both ways, so you get to pick. Since I don't have any feathers or horsehair, I'm going to make the plume out of foam. So glue the 2 plume pieces together to make a gray rainbow. Then grab your high-tech heat forming machine made from a hair straightener, or HTH FMM FAHS for short, and use it to create a multitude of lines going around the gray rainbow. If your rainbow was a complete circle, imagine the lines radiating out from an imaginary center point. I found it easiest to divide mine up into sections and then fill in the lines in between. If you do not own an HTH FMM FAHS, you can still get a similar result by using the back of a pair of scissors. Use lots of pressure and rub back and forth vigorously. Take your newly texturized rainbow, glue the other 2 flat ends together, and you've got a plume, which, if my pattern was worth the money you paid for it, should fit in the plume base. Take it back out of the plume base and sand along the upper edge so that you can glue on the plume top. Start by gluing the 2 rounded ends, then the center, lining up the center lines of course, and finally filling in all the gaps. Now go into your son's bedroom, find a stash of random things he's taken apart, and grab a nice chunky gear. Stick a skewer through the gear and voila, a texturing wheel. Roll the gear over the plume top while playing the popular game, Keep the Gear on the Stick. I lose. It seems to work best holding the gear at an angle so the impressions are made by the sharp edges of the gear. Okay, with the plume done, let's go back to the plume base, glue the odd hourglass on the side to cover up the seam, and then glue the plume base on top of the helmet. Of course, you can put it wherever you want on the helmet, but I'm going to line up the back point of the odd hourglass with the center V-cut seam on the top of the helmet. Next up, we've got some decorative rivets, and for those I'm going to pull out my Cricut from the dark recesses of my workshop because it's just a lot less work than cutting them all by hand. It is possible, but I'm not going to do it. Grab the discs and the back of a dinner knife and start rubbing it vigorously on a surface. Make lines across the disc, dividing it into 8 equal sections, like a pizza or a pie. Figure out where your decorative rivets are going to go, mark them, and glue them down. 3 on each cheek guard, 2 on each side of the front just below the visor, and 3 on the neck protector. Grab a 6mm leather punch and punch a whole bunch of discs. Use super glue to glue one of these discs in the center of each decorative rivet. Let's also add some more of these discs around the ear cutout and at the top and bottom of the odd hourglass. Now it's time for the neck wrinkles, so get out the template. For the first strip, you'll mark between the dotted line and the edge of the template and cut it. For the second strip, you still want to mark that dotted line, but you're going to make your cut on the outside line. Consult your pattern and cut the strips to the correct length. Make a mark 1.5 centimeters in from both ends of each strip. Apply glue along the edge between the marks on strip 1 and fold it in half, gluing the edges together. Clean off any glue globs on the bottom of the seam because you'll need that smooth later. On strip 2, you want your glue between the marks and just above the dotted line. Now you can fold the top edge part way down so it meets at the dotted line. Make a little triangle starting just below the fold and ending where your glue seam starts. And cut, all 4 little triangles. Place strip 1 on strip 2, overlapping it by an amount that you think looks nice. Mark a line there so it's easy to get back into position as you glue it down. Try it out on your helmet and realize that it's magically turned orange. and is just not quite long enough. That's no problem though, because you can just stretch it out until it's the right length. Apply some glue just on one end, and press it up against the candy cane, trying to press it as flat as possible against the helmet so its edges are as flush as you can get them with the candy cane. Mark the top of your neck wrinkles strip, and apply glue just below that line as well as along the bottom edge. Don't go quite to the end because again you want to give special attention to making sure that the end of the strip is pushed down nice and flush. Now it's time to add the cheek guards, so let's sand the inside of the helmet where the cheek guards will attach, as well as the top of the cheek guards. Now is your last chance to adjust the angle at the top of the cheek guards. It's that angle that will determine how far the cheek guards slant in towards the chin. If you're happy, you can glue the cheek guard hinge to the top of the cheek guard, and then glue the other half of the hinge to the inside of the helmet, pushing it up nice and tight so it forces that inwards angle. I found the positioning that worked best for me was slightly forwards of the ear cutout. And with that, our helmet is done, and it's time to start painting. Paint the whole helmet with a coat of black acrylic paint. Paint the plume as well, just leave about 1 centimeter unpainted at the bottom to give somewhere to glue to. Leave the helmet somewhere to dry, and while it's drying, you might as well clean out your paint tray. That's better. Now give it another 2 or 3 more coats of black paint until you're tired of painting things black.
This is a very sad time for me because I really love it when it's just painted black, and now I've got to paint it silver. So just take a really good look and remember how that looked, because it looks pretty
Spend some time enjoying the blackness of your helmet, and then get out your secret silver paint, which happens to be a 50-50 mix of DecoArt Americana Decor Metallics pewter and silver. Put a bit on a piece of cardboard, and with your gloved hand, get a little bit on your finger, rubbing most of it off on the cardboard, and then lightly rub it onto the helmet. This is a bit of a tricky technique and takes a while to master, but the main ingredients to success are having enough coats of black paint underneath so that the foam texture is all filled in, wearing gloves, and not putting too much paint on your finger at once. Also, don't worry about getting silver paint where it's not supposed to be. You can go back later and repaint black over top of those spots. If there are areas that are too hard to get with your finger, you can always use a small brush. Just dab it in the paint, then dab most of the paint off the brush, then dab the remaining paint on the helmet. Once your silver's dry, go back to black and re-blackenate any parts that got accidentally silver. While you're waiting for that to dry, you can use the exact same technique on the plume, but instead of using silver paint, you're going to use red paint. And it'll probably take about 4 or 5 coats to build up a nice solid red color. If you're finding the black in the recesses is too dark for your taste, you can do a light coat of red with a brush to dull it down a bit. Now grab your DecoArt vintage brass paint, go back to your helmet, and repeat the whole process for all the gold accents. Here's a good idea using a gift card to protect the silver paint from the gold. Glue the plume into the plume base, and you're done. You made a Roman helmet out of foam.
All right, I guess we're done. Isn't making things fun? I think it is. I had a really good time with this project. It's not that hard to build, it doesn't take that long to make, and it has a really good result. One thing I forgot to mention in the video is there is a piece number 17, which it doesn't talk about at all. And this is just for if you wanted to add any kind of decorative strip around the plume. So just to give you an outline, maybe you want to make your own little swirly strip in there or something like that. That's what that's for, so don't be confused. Sizing wise, obviously there's a chart of the different sizes. I'd say if you're at the very top end of the chart, it might be good to bump up to the next size up. And it's pretty forgiving for if it's too big for your head. You can just add a little bit of foam in there to tighten it up a little bit, and it still looks good because like an oversized helmet still looks right. If you do want to get an in-between size between 2 sizes, just take the larger size and scale it to about 98% when you're printing it out, and that'll give you something approximately in between 2 sizes. And of course you can get the pattern by clicking the link in the description or somewhere around here at the end of the video. This pattern is also included in my Ultimate Everything Super Value Bundle, which is all my patterns from the past into the future forever, which is a crazy good deal. So check that out if you like lots of patterns for very little money. Also, I did mention in the first video that I would show you how I made this helmet. So I'm still gonna do that, but I'm gonna do it in its own video because I think it deserves it, because it's so great. I'll show you what I did. I'll show you some new software I found that was really fun to use, and I'll share with you the files I used for 3D printing all the extra cool little swirly bits and pieces. All right, thanks for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day. See ya.